Saturday's scrimmage may determine everything for Purdue football.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Nick Arvin. We got a special episode coming your way today, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season's right around the corner. Visit FanDuel and plan your future bets now. Let's go ahead and hop right into this today. We got a big episode of football coming your way, talking about this Saturday scrimmage, what all's on the line for Purdue, what all may be determined Saturday during that scrimmage. We'll also talk about this quarterback problem. It's starting to become a real issue as we get closer and closer to week one kickoff against Ball State. And then lastly, in our final segment of the show, we'll have a little bit of a rundown, a lot of exciting news coming for the show for Locked On Boilermakers, and I'll kind of tell you about something special that's going to happen the following shows going forward to that week one kickoff with Ball State. So let's go ahead and jump right in to what was said today. Barry Odom took the stand today. He talked to reporters after today's practice, and here's what he had to say. Essentially, practice has been going well. You bring all these transfers in. We see that 50-plus transfers have been brought in this year for Purdue following what was terrible last year, and you bring all those guys in. They're all competing for spots, and what Barry Odom says is, hey, we're not totally there yet, but our guys, they're learning, they're playing better together, and hey, they're getting better every day. We don't know what that depth chart is, but after their Saturday scrimmage, we should have a good idea what that depth chart's going to look like. We're going to start working on that depth chart, and overall, what's pretty much been determined is, hey, this Saturday scrimmage, if you want to make your name known, if you want to become a one in that depth chart, if you want to fight for a spot, maybe being a two for some of those younger guys, that's your opportunity to do so. Saturday is going to be so important for so many of these guys to really show out, show who they are, and show that they're able to fit and be productive members of this football team. So we're going to see that. We'll talk more about that going into next week, kind of how that Saturday scrimmage played out. Where some of these guys are going, the risers in the depth chart, the fallers in the depth chart, so to speak. But Barry Odom also talked about, hey, we won't know what these positions are going to be until this scrimmage, but the defensive backs, that cornerback, the safety room, that's been one of Barry Odom's biggest focuses so far on the defensive side of the ball, figuring that out. We saw Barry Odom put a high priority on getting offensive line transfers in to Purdue following that portal opening. And we've also seen the second biggest group of players that he's brought in were the defensive backs. He wanted to replace a core that didn't show much potential last year. There was a lot of issues, inconsistencies in that defensive back core last year. And Barry Odom decided, hey, that's what we're going to address this year. He brings in a guy like Travion Wright from Mississippi State. He brings in a guy like Hershey McLaurin. These are all guys that are really going to perform this year. They're going to get instant starting spots for this Purdue roster in that defensive back core because it was so depleted last year. So many guys left. So many guys moved on from the university. And Barry Odom's been trying to get that position to really work this offseason. He's been talking about flexibility at the defensive back position. He wants guys that are going to be able to stop on the dime and really compete in coverage. That's something that we didn't see with Ryan Walters. Just guys not being able to compete, getting beat down the field, getting beat on that long ball. And that's something that really needs to be fixed. He wants guys that are going to be active, are going to be in the pursuit when that's their assignment, guys that are going to wrap up. And he wants cornerbacks that are going to be really physical. And then when you talk about the safety position, what he's looking for are very high IQ guys that, like I said, are going to make the correct read. They're going to bite when they need to bite. They're going to not bite when they don't need to bite. And they're going to be active tackling. They're going to be active wrapping up. And they're going to be active getting into that backfield. That's something that we're going to see this year is a certain amount of safety blitzes, a certain amount of safety pressures. When you have talented safety transfers like Barry Odom was able to bring in, that's an ability that you're going to have. You have the ability to do certain packages with your DBs, certain packages with your safeties that you weren't necessarily able to do last year because you didn't have the amount of talent that Barry Odom brings in this year. You also bring in guys like a Khalil Cummings from Memphis. You also bring in a guy like Tony Grimes from UNLV. Tony Grimes absolutely killing it so far at camp. He's been killing it all summer. He's been killing it into the fall. That's a guy that I expect we'll hear his name called quite a bit. He comes over from UNLV with Barry Odom alongside a few other guys we'll talk about when we speak about that offensive line, because those UNLV transfers have really been making their name known. But a guy like Grimes is really going to produce this year. He's going to fit in at corner. He's going to be a lockdown type of guy and hopefully give Purdue something that they didn't have much of last year, and that's consistency at that defensive back position. So Barry Odom talks about how important the defensive back position is. He talks about how that's one of the groups that he really wants set in stone after this scrimmage Saturday, how that's one of the groups that he wants a little bit of clarity about who's going to be the ones, who's going to be the twos, who's going to fill in at that 3 spot. And I think that's something we'll see. I expect us to see some results of that going into next week, but something that Odom also wanted to mention and something that we've been talking a lot about on the show is that offensive line. We talked about last week how, hey, you can bring in these talented transfers, those UNLV guys, whether that's a Mason Vicari, a Hank Purvis, a graduate transfer in Jalen St. John. Those are all great guys. Those are talented offensive linemen. We saw them succeed last year in the Mountain West. They come over for an opportunity at Purdue alongside with their head coach. And that's perfect. You want guys that are going to be physical up front, but you also need cohesion as a group. You need a group that's going to play together, that's going to be very high IQ, and that's going to see the field on a consistent basis. We saw that Purdue flipped through 14 different guys on the line last year, and that's something that needs to change if Purdue's going to want to find any success this year. Barry Odom still says, hey, we don't have our starting 5 yet. We don't know the 5 guys that are going to play out, but that's going to be another position group that's going to be extremely important going into Saturday, going into these scrimmages coming up this weekend. So when you think about what you're looking for in an offensive line, I think who Barry Odom puts together in that scrimmage is going to be very telling, because at this point, we're just over 2 weeks out. By the time this comes out, we should be exactly 2 weeks out from that week 1 kickoff. And you want to start knowing your guys. We're not too far from the season. We're really kind of coming up on that. And we'll talk about that for another position, but you don't want it to kind of bleed into the season. You don't want some ambiguity at that offensive line position, because we saw that last year. We saw plenty of ambiguity at that offensive line position, and they got beat every single Saturday. And that's not something that Purdue's going to be able to do this year if they want to find success and if they want to build that into wins. You have to be successful up front. You have to be big up front. If you're not, you're going to get beat in the Big Ten. Thankfully, Purdue has Ball State, non-conference opponent week 1. They have Southern Illinois, FCS opponent week 2. So there is a margin for error, so to speak, but Barry Odom talked about that. He said, hey, with where this team was last year, bringing all these transfers in, we don't have the margin of error in those 2 games that some people might expect. And while I don't necessarily agree with that, from the fact that I think Purdue could put out pretty much anybody and beat Ball State, beat Southern Illinois, it would be nice to know who the starters are, who's going to fill in those gaps, and who's going to be the starters at DB. We kind of have answers at linebacker. We know that Sanders Ellis has really been balling out so far, so he's a name to look at from the linebacking core. That's a Tennessee State transfer, but we want to figure out what's going on at defensive back. We want to figure out what's going on at offensive line, and we want to figure out what's going on at quarterback, and we'll talk about that here in our next segment. We still don't have answers at that position, so we'll figure out what's going on at quarterback here next. As summer winds down, there's something nice about getting back into a routine you love, and Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. From bedding and linens to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is your one-stop shop to refresh your home. I recently snagged some silk bedding off Wayfair, and it's some of the best decisions I've ever made. I'm sleeping so well Thanks to Wayfair, and you can be sleeping well too. Get organized, refreshed, and back to routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. We talked last segment about some of the positions on the field that are going to be determined Saturday, are going to be determined in that scrimmage. But one position that we thought might be determined at that scrimmage just got announced today by Barry Odom in that press conference that, hey, this isn't the time frame that we're looking for. So we did get some specifics about when that quarterback battle is going to be determined. So that's good. But what I've been saying, what I thought, what a lot of people thought is by now, by Saturday scrimmage, we should have an answer at quarterback. And that's been further from the truth than what we even thought, because today there was no acknowledgement of even there being two front runners. We've talked about how Malachi Singleton and Ryan Browne are the front runners here on the show. And while I still do believe that's the truth, I believe that's what I've seen from training camp. I believe those are the two standout guys that are really going to carry Purdue into these final weeks of training camp as the favorites. But what Barry Odom had to say is, hey, we're not down to two guys yet. Bennett Meredith and Evans Chuba, they're still in this competition. They still have an opportunity to show what they can do going, whether that's into scrimmages or going into next week. And when asked, hey, is Saturday going to be the day you talk about, we're going to make this depth chart, we're going to determine what positions have some starters following Saturday, Barry Odom said, no, we're not ready to make that yet. We're still focusing on getting our guys reps. We're still focusing on making sure that we have the perfect guy, and we don't want to cheat any of the quarterbacks on our roster out of that opportunity. And that's really interesting because you're getting up there. You want a quarterback to be figured out by this point, I would think. And the fact that there is no quarterback, it scares me a little bit. I know that Barry Odom's trying to do his due justice as a head coach, make sure he's got it right. But I feel like you want certainty by this point in the year. I feel like 2 weeks out from week one, you need to have some type of determination of who's going to be that guy. And I don't know, maybe Barry Odom does have that determination. He wants to make sure everything's there. But all we've seen from camp so far is that Malachi Singleton has been making throws to compete with Ryan Browne, who was the presumed front runner for that job at the start of offseason. As soon as he comes back to Purdue, a lot of people think, hey, he's going to run back with this quarterback job. But look, if you look at what Malachi Singleton was able to do this week, he had a great week. And then today was a great day for Malachi Singleton. He was making throws like he has been in the past. He's been making things happen on his feet, although he's got that red jersey in camp, so nobody's really touching him. But we've seen that Malachi Singleton has really stepped up. He's really been competitive in this competition, and he's a guy to look at going into Saturday, going past Saturday. I think that Ryan Browne's great too. I think that he's a great quarterback. I think that either option, whether you go Malachi Singleton, whether you go Ryan Browne, is a quarterback that will be able to play well into Barry Odom's system. I think that both of those guys were brought in intentionally because Barry Odom knows that those two guys fit his system, both being top dual threat quarterbacks coming out of high school. Browne out of Florida, Singleton out of Georgia, I believe. But when you think about it, when you think about where we're at Saturday, when you think about the fact that Bennett Meredith and Evans Chuba still are presumed to be in the starting quarterback position, I think that something needs to change. I think that numbers need to start getting dwindled down a little bit. I think we need to get to two guys, and I think that that needs to be out in front. I think that the media needs to know. I think that the fans need to know that we're deciding on two guys, and I expect that to maybe happen after Saturday's scrimmage. I expect Barry Odom to kind of go out and say, hey, Singleton is our guy, Browne is our guy. When you look at what Barry Odom says, he wants to have a little bit of clarity by Thursday or Friday of this coming week. So just about a week out from week one against Ball State. That's crazy. You don't know who your starting quarterback is until 8 days before you kick off for the season. So Odom also said today that this isn't going to bleed into the season. He doesn't want this to bleed into the season. So we now know that a quarterback will be decided next Thursday or Friday. That's the minimum. That's when Odom says he'll start having those conversations. He'll start thinking about who that starter is going to officially be. And we know that it's not going to bleed into the season. So week 1 against Ball State, that gives you about an 8-day range for Barry Odom, for his staff, to determine who the starter is going to be, to determine conversations that need to be had with certain guys, figure out who needs to be where, who needs to be plugged in with what practice group. And those are conversations that will be had. But I do think it's an interesting thing to note. I think that we're in an interesting spot because this is extremely rare for a quarterback battle to go down to the wire, to go down to the final 8 days of camp, to go down to the final 8 days of practices. But it really kind of speaks to where Purdue was last year. Barry Odom wants to make perfectly sure at all positions on the field. Like I said, we'll find that depth chart out going into this next week. We'll have that covered for you on the show. But when you think about where Purdue was last year, you think about 1-11, you think about how Ryan Walters had that locker room dysfunctional. Barry Odom wants to be a new regime. He wants to be completely different than where this program was last year. He wants to be in a completely different spot come halfway through the year, come week 1 even, for how this program gels together, the guys in the locker room, the functionality of the guys in the locker room. We saw a dysfunctional locker room at a lot of times last year. We saw guys that didn't necessarily get along, guys that didn't necessarily want to be there, so to speak. When you talk about kind of towards the end of the year where that team was just getting beat by plenty of points and not showing much fight, that's what Barry Odom wants to avoid. That's why he's taking so much pride in his decision. That's why he's taking so much time determining not just who's going to be playing at these other position groups on the field, but specifically who his quarterback's going to be of the future. Because normally when you think about a quarterback battle, you think about an older guy, maybe an older guy with a higher IQ that has familiarity with the system. And then you think about a younger guy that's really kind of coming onto the scene, really showing who he is as a quarterback, showing that talent. And that's traditionally the quarterback battle that we would see, whether that be at Purdue or another program. But this year, this quarterback battle is so unique because both Singleton, both Browne, if you include this year ahead of them, have 3 years of eligibility. A lot of these transfers that Barry Odom brought in, there are some older guys, there are some graduate transfers, but a lot of these guys that he brings in are younger with the ideal that you build these guys up throughout your tenure. You establish an identity here in year 1, and you bring these guys with you into the future of Purdue football. And that starts at the quarterback position, and it's most important at the quarterback position. Whether you decide to go Malachi Singleton, whether you decide to go Ryan Browne, you want to be certain, hey, this is going to be the face of Purdue football for hopefully 3 years. Obviously, with how college football is now, with the landscape of college football, it's hard to maintain a quarterback for that long. It's hard to maintain guys on your roster that want to be at your school for years straight when other opportunities may arise. But you have to figure Barry Odom knew the character of Ryan Browne when he recruited him back to Purdue. He knew the character of Malachi Singleton when he recruited him from Arkansas. And both these guys are guys that Barry Odom believes he can build a program on. Guys he believes can build a winning culture, and guys he believes not just down the line, not just down the future, but guys now that are ready to compete and ready to play a winning brand of football. And that's all you can really expect for Barry Odom. That's all you can expect for Malachi Singleton, and that's all you can expect for Ryan Browne. So we're here right now. Odom says that there's 4 guys in the competition. From my perspective, there's just 2. I expect after Saturday's scrimmage, that gets whittled down. I expect we have 2 guys after Saturday's scrimmage. I expect a decision to be made next weekend, a week from this Saturday, a week from this scrimmage. Let the guys work it out a little bit going into this next week. I think it's way too close, but I think we have our answer then. We'll keep that coverage going for you guys following this quarterback battle all training camp long. But in this next segment, I want to talk to you guys about a little bit of a special thing that we're going to start doing for the show going into kickoff. I'll have that for you guys here next. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race. You think Pat Mahomes is going to cement himself in that Chiefs dynasty again this year? How about Joe Burrow looking to make something happen over there in Cincinnati? Division rival Lamar Jackson, former MVP, may have something to talk about that. Crown your champion in August. Maybe the Eagles repeat. Maybe the Chiefs come back for revenge. Well, you can do all that and more if you visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. For this final segment in our Fabulous Friday episode, I wanted to run through some things that are happening on the show, some things that are very exciting, and I'm excited to announce. So just about 2 weeks away from the week one matchup against Ball State, we'll have about 12 episodes, maybe 11 episodes coming out for you guys during that span, because we are daily. But with being daily, with the time that we are right now, it is kind of hard to find entertaining content. It is a little bit of a slow news period. So I had the idea to come up with a new segment every day, every podcast, where until football season, we got about 12 episodes. We bring in a guest to come on the show for, hey, maybe a segment, one episode. If it's a really big game, we'll bring him in for a full episode, and we'll have that full game breakdown that day for you guys. But from now until when we kick off week one against Ball State, I'll still have some basketball coverage for you guys, but we will have a guest on every episode, and that's something that I'm super excited about. So starting next week, we'll have a guest on every episode for you guys, and I'll run through some of the guys that are coming on next week. I'm really excited about some of the people that we were able to get on, some people that I'll have for you guys. So I'll be working over the weekend hard for y'all to provide the best Purdue content we can, to get the best guests on that we can for you guys. So starting out Monday on our Ball State episode, we got Rowan Elbert, who's coming on the show. Rowan does a lot of stuff over there at Ball State, pretty involved in the play-by-play game at Ball State in Muncie, Indiana. So he knows the Cardinals inside and out. He'll have great insight into what Purdue fans can expect for that week one matchup against Purdue, what Purdue can expect going in to the first game of the Barry Odom era. So I'm excited to talk to him Monday. Make sure to tune in to that episode. Going into Tuesday, our Tuesday for this week is going to be Knox Reeves. Knox, a good friend of mine, covers FCS for multiple years, 3+ years now. He's been on the radio, on ESPN Plus, writing. He does it all. Covers FCS football, not FCS basketball, but just regular mid-major basketball. Really involved with kind of Southern Illinois, some other FCS schools out there. Knows a lot. Great insight coming from Knox Reeves. Really talented guy. We'll be excited to have him on the show Tuesday. Wednesday, we'll have a full show for you. That'll be a full 30 minutes coming up. And that's with our guy at Locked On USC, Mark Colkin. Let me tell you a little bit about Mark Colkin here for a sec. So our guy Mark has been covering USC football for plenty of years, really well tenured out there in USC. He's seen through the Pac-12 days, now over to the Big Ten days. Covers USC for wearesc.com and runs Locked On USC over here on the Locked On Network. So he's going to be a great show. We're going to have him on for 30 minutes. That show's going to come out Wednesday for you guys. I've talked about how vital that USC game is going to be for Purdue's overall outlook. And I surprised a few people when I say, hey, I think Purdue might be able to pull out that USC one. So there's going to be a lot of high intense conversations with me and Mark coming up Wednesday. That'll be one to watch. And then coming up Thursday, another one I'm really excited about. And that's going to be our guy, Tyler Wojak of Locked On Notre Dame, also a producer over at Fox Sports. So he knows what he's doing. He's really well-versed in the industry. His show does super good talking about the Irish. That'll be an in-state matchup. That game's coming up week 4, so we'll have Tyler on the show Thursday to talk about, hey, can Purdue I don't think that they have a shot, but we'll talk about how Notre Dame is building up this offseason, what to expect for Purdue fans going into that Notre Dame game. And then we'll finish off the week Friday with our guy, our pal, Sonny Verma. I was the first one to go on Sonny. He was the first show that I went on whenever I got hired for Locked On a few weeks back. Excited to have him on the show. We'll have that coming for you Friday, and what's going to be Purdue's 5th game of the year. That one will be fireworks. That's another game that I expect to be a real barn burner. We saw last year Ryan Browne stepped in for that game, and that game was explosive. So we talk about big games. Illinois is one of them. I'm excited to have Sonny on from Locked On Illinois, our guy talking Illini. That should be an exciting episode for you guys. It should be an exciting week for you. I have plenty of guests coming up, plenty of exciting guys that I'm excited to have on the show, that I'm excited to bring to this platform to show you guys. And I'm excited to kind of chat Purdue, chat this football schedule. We'll have basketball content still coming your way throughout this period, but it's a series that I'm really excited about. It's a series that I hope really kind of kickstarts this channel and gives you guys something to be really excited about, something that y'all can get really invested in. So we'll have that for you next week, full slate next week. Then following that, we'll continue to run those segments daily on every podcast. We'll find someone new. We'll find new guests. We'll find high quality guests that provide great insight for you guys, because we want to make Locked On Boilermakers the home for the best daily Purdue content you can find. We'll be covering Barry Odom. We'll be covering Ryan Walters. Not Ryan Walters. My apologies. We'll be covering Matt Painter. My bad. Let's get that guy far away from our podcast. No more Ryan Walters talk, but we'll have that all for you guys. Thank you guys for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen. We really appreciate all the support that you guys have been providing for the show. We've really kind of grown. We've been doing well on views, well on subscribers. We are trying to make it up to 1,000 subscribers by the start of kickoff week 1 against Ball State. It's a lofty goal, but I think that you guys can do it. We're improving every day here on Locked On Boilermakers. I'm really trying to grow in this position and really make a great show for you guys to watch every morning and to cheer on your Boilermakers. It'll start to pick up once we get this football season firing up on the way, but I'm really excited. We got 12 days until kickoff, and we'll have those episodes shooting out for you daily here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So thank you guys one more time for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show with our guy, Brian Smith. He has the latest room portal entries and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you guys for joining us again today. And as always, boulder up, hammer down.